Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be sharing some quick-fire quotes on Gerald from An Inspector Calls. But first let's just run our mind through what he does across the play. So, Gerald is an upper-class member of society. He comes from a wealthy family that have a business called Crofts Limited. Gerald is also engaged to Sheila Burling. Gerald across the play mirrors Mr. Burling because he agrees with his ideas about society. Gerald cheats on Sheila with Daisy Renton, otherwise known as Eva Smith, and doesn't show much remorse about it as the play unfolds. When Gerald discovers that the inspector might be a fake, he agrees with the Burling parents and goes back on his apology. Our first quote from Gerald comes from Act 1, in the stage directions, where Priestley describes him as a well-bred young man about town. Instantly, Priestley shares in that stage direction that Gerald Croft comes from a pedigree family. More than that, he is signalling here that Gerald comes from old money, that's money that's inherited through the generations, and he's well respected, accordingly, by society. The language at the end of the quote, man about town, signals that he is fashionable and sophisticated, quite the suave gentleman. Perhaps he goes to exciting places in the city. Beneath the superficiality of that quote is also hinted that Gerald might have a reputation with women or player instincts, as if he dabbles around the town. Perhaps at this point, Priestley is keen to make the audience question how far Gerald Croft could be devoted to Sheila, his fiancée. The seed of doubt has been planted. So our quote from Act 2 is actually Gerald retelling how he got to know Daisy Renton, or Eva Smith. I became at once the most important person in her life, you understand. Priestley illustrates here that Gerald is absolutely desperate for approval. At that moment, from Sheila and from Goole. Potentially Sheila because he is engaged to her, and Goole because he is judging the situation of neglect for this woman who has died. The superlative most important person amplifies his guilt in his actions. As he retells it, he heightens his whole set of motives, and he's trying to illustrate that he is an innocent man trying to do the right thing. It's really clear as well that Gerald is really keen to absolve himself completely from any blame in what he did. His job is to gauge the sympathy of the other characters on the stage. When he ends with the question, "You understand?" it has an almost imperative mood about it to almost accentuate he deserves his innocence and that they should feel sympathetic towards him. Perhaps at this point, Priestley is seeking to show that Gerald can be vulnerable. And also, maybe to make it so pointed, because later in the play, he doesn't really care about the vulnerable, and he seems to forget this moment. Our final quote from Gerald is him evaluating the incident with Goole and whether the whole episode was true at all. He says, "We've no proof it was the same photograph and therefore no proof it was the same girl." Here, the repetition of no proof proves that Gerald still identifies with the older generation. Mr. and Mrs. Burling, like him, have a complete lack of remorse. Additionally, he repeats same photograph, same girl. There's an element of arrogance here. He almost reviews the whole situation in quite clinical terms, and he doesn't seem at all responsible for what he witnessed. Here, Priestley illustrates that Gerald is callous in the wake of all the inspector has taught him. Our suggestion at this point is that he will continue to repeat his ways, until, of course, that phone call comes at the end of the play. Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar